So you've done a lot of projects, of which I know.
Mm.
Now, can you share at least one that it showed you pure shaggy, if I'm to use that word?
I produced a pageant in Port Harcourt. You know how pageants can be very competitive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Very highly competitive. We're going to give a car that year. All of those things were there. And crowning moments in pageants are the highlight of it, right? And when we're getting just towards crowning, the crown got stolen.
Oh my God, no way!
The crown that we're meant to crown the queen with, which was literally backstage, where every girl was looking and admiring and saying, "This is what I'm going to wear." We have no idea how that happened. We couldn't find the crown.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the African Entrepreneur Podcast by the Diaspora Code, a platform where we recognize and spotlight African visionaries who are building impact, creating opportunities, and making something positive in their field. Now, today's guest is someone who is doing exceptionally well and is someone you definitely do not want to miss. Now, he is a dynamic entrepreneur, a creative strategist, a media professional, and cultural innovator whose work spans across building technology, music, film, and community building. Now, he's widely recognized for creating opportunities, amplifying African talents, and building platforms that celebrate Black excellence on a global scale. Welcome me as I introduce Teinye Daniel Boy. I got that, didn't
Yeah,
I?
wow, that was an awesome introduction.
It's
Thank
so
you.
good to have you here. Like, I mean, all the way you traveled all the way to come here for
Mhm.
this. I must say thank you so much
Thank you
because
for
not
having me.
everyone would want to do this, but you went out of your way to do this.
Yeah,
I really
thank you
appreciate
so
you.
much. Thank you for having me as well.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So, just tell me about yourself. Let's talk about your background about yourself.
Um, it's a bit hard to talk about myself because I usually talk about myself from different angles when people ask.
Okay.
But I would say, however, that my journey has been very interesting. So, in talking about myself, I would have to talk about the fact that I was classed as a gifted child from a young age because I was genius at so many things.
Hmm.
Yeah, and obviously that led me to discovering myself and exploring my multiple potentials. And that's led me to writing a book about it. That's led me to creating multiple platforms. That's helped me work in different industries. So my journey in talking about myself, I'd say is very interesting. Very, very interesting.
So, when it comes to as a business owner, can you talk about your journey from where you started up until now?
Right. So being an entrepreneur, obviously my that I would say that started many years ago. Um, and if I'm being honest, I'll say that started just before I finished secondary school.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yes, because I used to, so informally, I used to organize events informally, but I formalized obviously after getting out of school. But yes, I did get paid for that as well. I've
Why
also,
you finished secondary school?
before I finished.
Oh, well, you were still in secondary
Yeah,
school.
yeah,
That's interesting. And
yeah.
you got paid for it.
Yes, yes. I mean, not a lot, but I mean, it
Yeah,
was
but
it
at
was
least,
interesting to see that people could pay for
yeah.
such a service, and that's also not the only thing I've been paid for. I've also been paid to sing. I've also been paid to train. So I've had a bit of early start in terms of business, But professionally, my journey I would say started when I obviously finished uni. When I now have had a registered business. When you say it's a
Mm-hmm.
registered business, and that's circa 2013. That's when I started out in talent management slash event management as well. So I had a brand, that was managing talent at the time. So the talent were cut across models, cut across people in art, artists, performing artists as well. and then obviously we now moved into people really. So pretty much that's the my first introduction to business, managing people. And then I now obviously moved to so many other things such as corporate communications, because one of my innate talents is being a writer as well. And I started writing articles as far back as 2009.
Hmm.
Yes. I remember I wrote for, actually, I mean, well, that's just because that's when I wrote for a public um, platform. In my school, I've written for the school magazines and stuff. So,
I mean, that's where we usually start. We
with, yeah,
start with our school or our
definitely,
church.
definitely. Actually, church as well. There's a community that I was a part of, and we're young people who were just wanting change. So I was the secretary of that.
Hmm.
I was the secretary of that community, and I remember the founder of the community would say to me, and in trying to make me serious with my position, he'll say, "You are to this community what Kofi Annan is to the UN."
Hmm.
you
That's
know
nice.
and I'm like, okay, so now when you put it that way, it makes it really, really big. Yeah. So yeah, pretty much I've had those kind of experiences, where I've had to join communities that are business communities, but obviously community driven, but done in the business way. We did talk shows, we had panel sessions that we invited people to speak, we had um, drama festivals and things like that. So I would say I've pretty much been in the art and entertainment industry for quite a while now. Yeah, so that's that. Even when I went to corporate Nigeria and started working in media and comms and arts and PR, I would say that also was fed by the fact that I've built this career from that industry, and I've taken it in a different direction, which is in the corporate world here.
So, talking about media, you've started media as far back as 2009. Now, what do you understand about branding and visibility, as from when you started, that most people do not still get till this very moment?
Rebranding. Everybody should not rebrand. So I know it's a common. I mean, I've had to rebrand. You know, I think just once or twice. I can't remember. But in my journey in media and comms, I would say one of the things I love entrepreneurs bastardize
Hmm.
is the use of rebrand. We feel when the business is going down, oh, let's just
They
rebrand.
just
And
rebrand.
and again, rebranding is not just changing your logos or your colors.
Yeah.
That's not rebranding. Rebranding is a redirection. Totally. Sometimes it's an overhaul, and sometimes it's just a migration from, or a deviation from your original course. So, but yeah, I would say that a lot of people just are eager to rebrand, obviously just change their logo, and they feel that's what it is. No, it has to start from the core of the business. What's that thing that you're changing from? What's that mentality that you've now gotten that you want to go with? What's that new vision that you're chasing, that you want to chase it differently from what people have known you for? That's what rebranding is about. So, but people just hurriedly
Mm-hmm.
rebrand as a decoy, to actual working on the problems that their businesses are facing.
That's absolutely true. And
Yeah,
then you won't even know them, like you won't even know where they're coming
they've not
from,
built long enough.
or where they're
Yeah,
even going to.
yeah, they've not built long enough.
Now let's go back into your background.
Yeah.
Now you grew up Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Accra, where you schooled.
Mhm.
Now, how were you able to see opportunities? When you saw opportunities, how were you able to, get hold of them?
I would, so firstly, I'll first say I'm a pretty discerning person, right? I know what I want to do per
Yeah.
time. I've always never really struggled with what I want to do. I always kind of know, and I always kind of know the people I want to do it with. So I was saying on another podcast, I said because they asked me, what's that gift of yours that you have that people do not know or people do not see? And I said, it's the gift of discernment.
That's a very strong one.
Honestly, I know who I want to work with, and oftentimes when I end up working with the people I'm not meant to work with, it comes back biting me. You understand? Yeah. So I always it's a thing, and maybe that's why when I was working in talent management, I excelled because I also know how to spot talents from the get-go, having a conversation with you, I will tell where you're going, and that's not because you've said so much to me, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just how it's innate. I just see it. And most times I've had people who I've told some 5 years ago, this is what I think you might excel in, or this is what I think you'll be doing. And some of them have gone to do those things and are exceptional at it today. You understand? So yeah, I think that's so for me. I've always been pretty much discerning with opportunities, and I know how to grab opportunities when they last. And I'm one person who, and I preach it all the time. I'm not somebody who puts money before experience. I don't put money before the right connections. I know some people are very driven or motivated by money, where if monies are not changing hands,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to get to it. But I have had to, in my career and all the places I've lived in, Lagos, Accra, and Port Harcourt, I've I find that I've made strategic alliances that didn't have to put money in front of them, and these alliances are the big network I have today.
Yeah.
So I can comfortably do a show in Port Harcourt. I go there every year to produce a show anyway, which is like the region's biggest art festival, cultural festival.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can still go to Accra and do a show, and I'll still have people come out. You know why? Because I have been able to build a community there. I'm exposed to some of the people in the Ghanaian creative scene that are the leaders of the industry, if you know what I mean. And that's because I've grown with them. These are people who have done favors to me. And, I didn't put money in front of every other conversation. And we've built over the time. And I'm talking over 10 years. And now these people are today my very good allies. I've had to connect some people who, oh, I want to do a show in Ghana. I want to headline. I want to take an artist to Ghana, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to ring two people. They do nightlife. Speak with them. You're going to get your artist on. I've met a designer who wants to showcase in one of the top Ghanaian fashion shows. And I happen to know the producer of that show. And I give that person the contact. But guess what? 10 years ago, when I was that person's friend, or when I met that person, it was a favor that I did for her that she's still
That's,
very indebted to
yeah.
till today. So for me, I would say my journey and how I've spotted opportunities is to never, never, never put money first, but to put value. As long as there's value on the table and you're able to discern if it's worth your while, I think you should go for it.
So now moving all the way from Africa, because I'm in Lagos, Accra, Port Harcourt,
Yeah.
coming down to the UK. Now, what's that mindset shift that you've had, especially as an entrepreneur? What's that thing? Because apparently, I'm sure the way the community in Lagos definitely will be different from how it is in Port Harcourt, different from how it is in Accra.
Mm.
Now, coming down to the UK, how has it been, that mindset shift that you've had?
So I would say that I've always worked with a mindset called adapt and survive.
Good.
So adapt and survive clearly means, so when I was in Lagos, right? Of course, I was born and raised there, and I did a couple of stuff in Lagos in terms of events, and the way I market events in Lagos is different from the way I market it in Port Harcourt,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a different market, right? And I remember I struggled at the time when I moved, because I moved to Port Harcourt after uni, and now in uni that was where I had like my most experience in the creative space, because I had to intern at different places. I got my first hand in live production, and when I moved to Port Harcourt, I realized that, in short, a lot of people told me, this is not Lagos. The way you're going about this is not how it's done here. And while I was not going to lose the excellence of it, I also understand that there are five different ways to go to the market, as long as you get there. You understand? So, and my dad would always say, the car went over there and over there went the car. It's the same thing. You understand? So, but it's just the placement of words. So, I went back to the drawing board when I moved to Port Harcourt, and I said, okay, this is how I'm going to do this here. And then in Accra, I also did things quite differently. So coming to the UK, one of the things I did was to study. I made sure I studied not just the terrain, but the people, and not just our people, even the hosts themselves.
Yeah.
I studied them. I studied their perception. Um, I met with a white lady at a networking event, and she said something. I was telling her about an event I did last year called Creators Mix, and I was telling her about it, and she was like, "Oh, interesting. I didn't know a lot of people, black people, go for things like that. All I see about black people's events are parties."
Hmm.
you know Again, but of course she would leave that conversation knowing that, oh, this is not how I see all black
Yes.
people. So for me, it was important for me to understand the mindset of the people and create in that direction. You understand? So that's why, I mean, much respect to people who do parties, who do fest. It's interesting because at the end of the day, we all want to let loose. I go to parties myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I, for one, was going to deviate from that bandwagon, if you will, and do something that would bring honor to our continent
Yes.
and our people.
So, while you were just talking now, you mentioned Creators Mix. Now, can you tell me about Creators Mix and also how it connects with Afriball? Because I know that yes, you do the both of them.
Yeah. So I'll put it this way: Creators Mix is the baby sister of Afriball that loves to connect with people.
All right.
Afriball is the mother that honors people.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Creators Mix is essentially a regional networking event for African creators and allies, to connect regionally. Right. We started in the Northeast last year, but this
Okay.
year we're looking to go into different terrains. We're going to Scotland. We're attempting to go to Wales, but that hasn't panned out properly. But we're looking to go to new cities and just gather African creatives. Now, why are we doing this? We're doing this because a lot of us creatives, we create in isolation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, a lot of people would say or would argue, no, we have our friends, but at the end of the day, we need you can never have too much network, can you?
No.
So Creators Mix is essentially just that platform that happens around the country, that is recruiting, that is gathering. Because again, my vision is the globalization of African creativity.
Mm.
So, and that has to start from the grassroots. So, what Creators Mix is doing is mobilizing creators regionally across the UK, and getting them to a position where, now this is where it connects to Afriball, where they are now rewarded
All right.
at the ball. So the ball is the annual national event, if you will, that sees African creators, that celebrates African culture shapers, um, as a one-off. But Creators Mix is the much more relaxed one that happens regionally, where, because not everybody will come to Afriball, because of course we live very far
Yeah.
from Newcastle, where it's holding at the moment. But we can bring Creators Mix to Middlesbrough,
And
for
then,
instance, and then creators in Middlesbrough would meet, creators in Leeds would meet, creators in
yes.
Sheffield will meet, creators in London will meet. So that's what we're doing. And then, of course, making them aware that, look, there's this national event that is by us, for us, and with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the connection between Creators Mix
I know
and
you call
Afriball.
yourself a sequential multipod.
Yeah.
Now, how do you manage everything that you do? Like, how do you decide to focus on, I'm going to do this at this time at each stage?
Again, back to discernment.
Oh,
Back
yes.
to discernment. I again, I always say that I always know what I want to do per time, and because as a multipod and a sequential multipod, to put it more directly, I I would have struggled if I was a spontaneous multipod. I would have struggled if I was a cyclical multipod, because there are different kinds of
Mm-hmm.
multipods, and I've said that in my book. A sequential multipod is somebody who does things in sequence.
Yeah.
So per time there's something, right, and I find that has worked with my own strength, and my own ability. So as a sequential multipod, how I know what to do per time is this: I work with templates. I can tell you what I'll do in 5 years' time. I'm that meticulous,
Yeah.
right? And so it's helped me put things at the time they're needed, right? I knew about Creators Mix and Afri-Ball as far back as 2022, but
Interesting.
I didn't want to do them then because I knew I was not ready for them. I needed to, I wanted to, mix with the community. I wanted to meet more people and get enough people, aware of myself and of what I'm doing before eventually doing it. And that's why the very first Creators Mix was sold out, because people had, anticipated it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, we expect that kind of impact at Afriball, because again, we've had to mobilize people across board. So I would say it's firstly discernment, and secondly, because I operate in a roadmap, right? Currently, what is interesting me now at this point in time is three things. I call them my three C's. So there's culture, creativity, and community. That's what interesting. That's what interests me right now. Tomorrow it might be film. That doesn't mean I wouldn't continue Afriball, right? But it just means that the phase of starting it has moved. So, and that happens with me when I'm starting a new brand. So right now it's all about that three C's, and then after this it might move to something else, but it does not mean that is going to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
But it just means that that had all of me when it was starting. And then I'm somebody that I always tell entrepreneurs and African entrepreneurs, and particularly, I'm always somebody that thinks about the future, especially when you build for legacy. Because at the end of the day, as Africans, we should start thinking of how we can build brands that outlive us.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I like to build and to a point where I'm able to live it and have people run it, because that's the only way you've succeeded as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right? So again, the phase of building culture, community, and creativity is now. But tomorrow, next tomorrow, it might be something else, but that would not suffer, because I would have built it to the point where it could run by itself.
So you've done a lot of projects, of which I know.
Mm.
Now, can you share at least one that that was very, if you can talk about it, like as an entrepreneur, it showed you pure shaggy, if I'm to use that word, and how were you able to deal with it?
Okay, when you were saying it, like one of them easily came to my mind, but another one now came again when you said Shaggy. So I'm going to use two events
All right.
to prove that point. So the first one is in 20, I think it was 20, no, was it 2019 before COVID? I really can't remember, but there was an event that I was contracted to create and produce. It's called Blockchain Vibes. And blockchain is a thing. Everyone is doing alternative money right now. And that is a different terrain that I've never entered. I've never done tech events. No, I've never done tech events. The closest I was to creating a tech event was a product launch for a startup, where at the time I was heading their media and comms department. So we just did a product launch, have people come, launch the app and things, use the app and all of that. But this was, somebody was challenging me and said, come and work, do this. It was, one, it was the first time it was happening. Two, it was my first time of doing anything tech. And it was challenging because I didn't even know. I mean, if I do lifestyle, fashion, and all of that. I know the people in it. I know who is in it. But me going to a different sector,
something
and then blockchain,
different.
Not just even tech, blockchain, and it was an international event, right? So I relied a lot of the things I did was study. I really needed to study, and so I was trying to prove myself, right? Okay, you can't only do that, because I've also done something in business and banking, right? End of year awards for them, So I'm like, this is a very different. So I studied, and then thankfully the founder of the project was very resourceful. He kept feeding me with the resources I needed, and then but it was interesting to see that I had a limited idea of what that industry was about until I got into it. As a matter of fact, when they tell me, "Oh, this person just confirmed and is coming," I'm like, "Who is that?" And then, you don't know, this person is the biggest blockchain person in Ghana. I'm like, okay, right. So so that was it. And then, but the one I would say now, when you say the one that showed me shaky, 2006, 17. I produced a pageant in Port Harcourt, and you know how pageants can be very competitive, right? Very highly competitive. We're going to give a car that year. All of those things were there, and crowning moments in pageants are the highlight of it, right? And when we're getting just towards crowning, we had shortlisted the girls from however number to 5. And just when it got there, the crown got stolen.
Oh my God, no way!
The crown that we're meant to crown the queen with, which was literally backstage, where every girl was looking and admiring and saying, "This is what I'm going to wear." We have no idea how that happened. We couldn't find the crown. I was wearing a suit at the time because just before that, I was going to go out and give my speech. I, with my suit, sat on the floor. I remember I was sitting because I didn't know. I'm like, okay, you have a mammoth crowd waiting for that moment. You have 5 girls. We are going to now downsize to 3 and 1.
Wow.
And I was like, what do we do? What do we do? And now this is going to now fit into something I tell people about having a mentor. So I stayed there and I sat on the floor. And I remember some people were coming to me like, no, it's not up to this, like this, that. So we had an artist that was performing. And I remember when my associate producers were coming to me and, "Sir, what do we do? He's nearly finished." I'm like, "Ask him to sing another song." He's nearly finished. Let him sing 3 songs, 5. So let him sing. Because I needed to buy time.
Yes.
And he was the biggest artist at the time on that show. So we needed, after him, there was no other person else would have put in another artist, but it was just him. So he sang, and I just had to ring my mentor. And God bless Santiago Roberts. I would mention him any day, anytime. And I rang him and I said, "This is what the situation is." And he gave me, people who take out the place of mentors do not know their importance. Mentors are meant to unstuck you when you're stuck because they have lived it and you are living it. Now I called my mentor and he gave me the most brilliant idea, which at the time when it happened, I would never have thought of. And he said, "Do you have other queens that you invited?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Go get one of their crowns, crown, and let the show end." I'm like, whoa, I'd never thought of that. He said, "Yeah, go into the crowd. You have some queens with their crowns, right? Excuse one of them, take them backstage. Nobody will really cares as long as you crown." So we took one of the queens backstage, told her the situation. She was gracious enough to give us a crown, and we crowned, and I could finally breathe.
Oh.
Because I feel like at that point, I felt like I was failing and people were beginning to notice there was something going on. They were beginning to notice because backstage was chaotic. The girls were blaming themselves. People were searching. I mean, the pageant manager at the time, God rest her soul, SK, she was literally searching everybody's bag. And we had over 30 contestants. But she had a team that she was really going mad, And then I was out there just trying to think of things. And each time I peep into the audience, people are now pressing their phones. People are now just opening the brochure. Yeah. This singer is good.
But they were distracted.
But they got tired because he had done the most. And then we just found a way to navigate that situation. So yeah, that situation is something I will never stop talking about. It was something. It was the first time I would say I've produced an event and I literally had a heart attack backstage. Yeah.
So did they eventually find the crown?
No, we didn't.
Oh my God.
No, we didn't. Yeah. So we had to buy the replica because I remember at the time the crown, we bought it from Dubai.
Wow.
And yes, it had some precious stones on it. So it was glittering. It stood out. It stood out. Even when we crowned, so we had to obviously do damage control. Yes. We ordered a new crown, did a new photo shoot with the queen with the new crown and all of those things. But for the crown that we used in crowning for that night, it wasn't the shiny sapphire crown that we had bought. Yeah.
So coming down to the UK, what challenges have you faced as a business owner?
I would say misunderstanding. Yeah, and again, and I'm sure it's something you can relate with. People would misunderstand you intentionally and unintentionally. People would tell you to your face that what you're doing is a white elephant project. They've said that to me at the ball. They've said that to me about the things that I've done. And But when people say to you, I always tell people, when God, gave you the vision, when God or whoever gives you your inspiration gave it to you, it wasn't a conference call, it was a direct call to you. So you shouldn't expect that people would see the things that you see until you create them. So I think that's one of the challenges. I would say top of it all is being misunderstood, and then access to market. So that's because we have a lot of gatekeepers.
Yes.
There's a lot of gatekeeping, a lot of
I
gatekeeping.
mean, I'm happy that I
Yeah.
asked somebody this question one time, and everybody has their own, the way they see things.
Mm.
And somebody did say that he doesn't like people who gatekeep. People shouldn't gatekeep. He gave his reasons,
Yeah.
which was quite understandable. And there was another person who said why he has to gatekeep. And he said, what's the point of sharing valuable information to people who might not even be worth it, who might not use it? So I'm like, yeah, there's this angle, there's that angle,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
however,
two truths
yeah,
can exist side by side, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to the effect of that truth. If you're on the other side, the guy who says, "Why should he share because you don't need it?" You've robbed somebody of
exactly.
access. And now, for the other guy who doesn't like gatekeepers, he's probably been burnt out, trying to get to a fence that has obviously been barricaded. And so for me, I I would toe the line of I wouldn't say I don't like gatekeepers, but I just feel it's unnecessary
Hey,
because at the end of the day, the sky is so
large
big
enough for
for
everybody.
everybody to win. It's so big. And look, there are some people in life that would be ahead of you, regardless of what you do.
Yes.
You have to come to peace with that. There are some people you would always be ahead of. They have to come to peace with that. So when you understand that you will never always be on top for every time, you'd start creating from the ground up. So I tell people I don't build like this, I build like this, because that's what solidifies you. That's what, when you have enough people that said, oh, I am this because of this person. I got my first opportunity because this person created a show. I got my first gig because this person linked me up with it. I feel like, to me personally, and this is a personal conviction, to me, that's what fuels me. That, because I have a personal mantra and I say it everywhere I go, that I would rather be worth knowing than well known.
Yeah.
I would rather people say, oh, you need to meet Teinye,
Yes.
than Teinye is popular and
Not accessible.
there's
No
unaccessible,
value.
no value to you directly. You understand? So yeah, I mean, that's one of the challenges obviously I've faced, when people, gatekeep, and you could tell that they're gatekeeping, and then some people will just blatantly tell you to your face that this thing you're doing, they'll look for I've had a lot of those calls. Trust me, I've spoken to people and people are saying, no, this is, but and I always tell them, I'm like, at the end of the day, that's what they said to me. We did Creators MIX, Creators because sold out events, and then we're going to do the ball, and it's going to be a sold out event because at the end of the day, I'm the one who sees the vision. I'm creating it. God is inspiring me to create it, and after it's created, people would now say, I mean, now people want to start doing the things that I've done in different angles, but we've broken that glass ceiling, and everyone is able to see the opportunities that there are, and everybody would win if you go with the mindset that your win is my win. It's my dream for this podcast to ace the charts, right? It is my win because, you know what, I've been here.
Yeah.
So whenever they say that podcast, oh, well, I've been there, but when we go with that mentality of it has to be me, or I have to be the first, we need to move from the first to who's next. Being the first black person is not a flex anymore. It's who is the next person you're bringing on. So
Yeah.
I would say so.
You mentioned something about people being at peace with wherever they are, which is a very, very important thing.
Yeah.
Now, that brings me to the question about community. You mentioned something about envy, which is happening a lot in the African community. Now, do you think that you're getting support from your community, Africans especially? Do you think they're supporting your dream, your goal as a business owner, at least for you to go forward? Because if people start understanding that they need to be at peace with, this is where I am. This does not mean that they cannot grow, but apparently we know that everybody is different. We all came differently. There are people who can speak in tongues and there are people who can interpret. Doesn't mean you are better than myself. So do you think you're getting the support from a lot of African?
That's a very tricky question. But I'll answer it in two parts and very quickly.
All right.
First of all, I'll answer it as somebody who is looking from outside in.
Okay.
I would say there's been quite people have been supportive. And I'm not lying. People have been supportive. But the people who have been supportive are people who have a direct relationship with me. So are they supporting me because they're supporting a friend, or they're supporting me because they think it's good? So that's one. And the other angle I would say, as a business person, right? We haven't gotten to the point of understanding what investments are. That's one thing I feel like the African community here needs to start understanding, that I can invest in your project. And again, that's because a lot of people are not doing business the right way. For instance, if you say your podcast is generating funds, I should be able to put 100, 200 in, because at the end of the day, we know how this country is. Sometimes you lose that money, you buy rubbish with it. You understand? But we need to start thinking of things like this as worthy investment. I should be able to say, or you should be able to raise 5,000 within the community, and that's I don't know what the math is, but that's some number of people giving you £50 each. You understand? So, but we haven't seen investment as a priority in our community, and that's why a lot of us don't really get the support. So on one side, people are not doing business enough professionally for people to see that this is a worthy investment, and on the other side, people don't see African businesses as viable enough to put their monies in.
No. Now let's talk about Afriball. I know that there's an award coming May 30th.
Yep.
And I want you to tell us about what Afriball is all about, what we should be expecting, how people are supposed to come on board. I know there are tickets that people need to get their tickets. Guys, you need to get your tickets. It's an award. You, an entrepreneur, business owner, whatever you're doing, Afriball is actually something that, you guys should come on board. So tell us about it.
Yeah. So I think I'm the number one fan of Afriball, and I'm excited whenever I talk about it. Hence, right. So again, I said I'm Afriball's number one fan, because I might not benefit from it. I don't think I'll ever get awarded on the platform, but that's the sacrifice of creating something for other people, isn't it? Yeah. So, but Afriball is essentially a Pan-African celebration of Africa's brilliance, right? It's an awards and gala. It's the kind of awards that sees you for you. It's not a place where you're going to go and strip off your ethnicity. It's a place where you want to go in the fullness of your culture and heritage, right? So I know there are other platforms in this country, but Afriball is putting African creativity on a pedestal of national recognition, right? So we have the Creators Awards, which is obviously side by side seats, and that's one of the staple of Afriball 2026 and the years to come. So the Creators Awards is to now shine the light on digital creators, people who are creating digitally. Again, breaking the monopoly and gatekeeping of having industry awards where you're saying best this, best that, and things like that. What we're doing is we want to have traceable evidences of the things that you've created. So it is rather than say makeup artist of the year, which obviously you're going to get a panel to judge. We are saying makeup creator.
Yeah.
You have to create. You understand? So that's also just encouraging Africans in the diaspora here in the UK to start putting their work out. Let people notice you. We're amazing. Put your work out, because again, there are no platforms that would celebrate creators the way Afriball intends to. So it's a night of African fashion, African food, African culture, African music. It's going to be an amazing night. We have a lineup of wonderful performers. We have good food. One at the crux of Afriball is the fashion. We want people to get used to dressing high fashion, high African fashion. So it's important for us as the creators of the platform, for people to show up in their glory, in their fullness, in the fullness of their African heritage. Yeah.
So what's your social media handle? Because I know people would want to follow you
Yeah.
online to see exactly what
Yeah.
you guys are doing.
Yeah.
So what's your social media handle?
Right. So at the moment, we have our Instagram down for whatever reason, but we're trying to recover it down. But we have a backup page, so it's the Afriball on
Underscore.
underscore for the backup. But the original one was the Afriball, and it's the Afriball on TikTok, the Afriball on Facebook, the Afriball on X, and on LinkedIn as well. And it's www.theafriball.com. Yeah, and it's happening on the 30th of May, 2026 at the Assembly Rooms, the prestigious Assembly Rooms in Newcastle.
Yeah, so everyone get your ticket. What's one advice you'd give to African entrepreneurs who are in the diaspora, those who are looking out to, build something, make a positive impact?
Focus on the thing that sets you apart, and that's your authenticity. Do not feel the need to strip off your brand from its core, and that core might be its cultural existence. It might be the nuances of your brand. Do not strip it off. Make sure you push that forward, because that's what sets you apart.
Thank you very much.
You're
It was
welcome.
really nice having you here.
Thank you.
I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you for
Thank you.
everything that you've said, for everything that
you.
you're doing. You're one person that is making very good impacts, bringing creators together, for them to actually showcase what they do, celebrate them. And I just want to let you know, because I know you mentioned that you are a number one fan of Afriball, and apparently the sacrifice you have made is you will not get an award. But I'm here to tell you that a lot of us here are celebrating you.
Thank you.
And we're also going to give you our own award.
Thank you. Well, this is one of them. This is one of them. Coming here is, yeah.
Oh, thank you
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right. So thank you for staying with us on this episode. If you really enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also don't forget to follow us on the African Entrepreneur Podcast on Instagram, and also the Diaspora Code on Instagram and on TikTok. So until I see you again, my name is Precious White. Bye.